Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Praveen. I think our session's title is securing fintech within the whole cybersecurity domain. And I think it cannot come at a more appropriate time because day before yesterday, all of us know was the budget. And in the budget, if you followed the budget speech, which I did very closely from the parliament, the word digital and technology and digital economy was a special section for the first time in the budget. Digital economy was one of the 8 pillars on which the whole budget was presented on. And the word digital was probably used more than 68 times. So we are in a very interesting phase in the country's journey where there is a new normal. And this new normal, it's a digital first normal, where everything we are trying to do with digital first as an approach. Does not mean cash has gone out of the system, especially in the financial domain, but digital should be the norm and cash should be the exception. That is the design parameter as a thinking of the government. Now, why I'm saying that is very important. And let me give you 2-3 examples. This morning, I sent out a tweet. A very scary news that we heard I read in some couple of media outlets today. Some 7 lakh people have been duped of 3,700 crores. 3,700 crores is almost $600 million. Over the last couple of years, in a standard attack, where people, I call the Indian version of the Nigeria 419 scam. How many of you know Nigeria 419 scam? जो आता है कि लॉटरी लग गई आपकी, आपको करोड़ों रुपए मिल गए हैं, आपको मेल मिली है, किसी को यहाँ पे इस कमरे में मेल नहीं मिली अभी तक? Everybody has got it, right? Everybody has got it once in their life. If you have not got it, really your email address is very, very secure, let me tell you that. Then you are very, very lucky. But everybody has got it. And I have very, very learned people who have called me and said, oh, Arvind, you know, I have received a mail from, now it's been localized also. Recently, they started sending mail as RBI governor. So instead of sending it from some dictator in Africa or somebody else, they started localizing that scam. Now it's become completely Indian. So you have a similar scam happening in India where some 7 lakh individuals have been robbed of almost 3,700 crore rupees over a period of time. As we move towards this whole digital economy, what happens in cash is you see it. You see your wallet every day, you see your, the money in front of you. And I'm only stating the obvious. In a digital world, it's all bits and bytes. Now, you see that number on your app, oh, I have a bank balance, right? You see an account statement at the end of the month, you know you have a bank balance, right? If that number is fudged, you don't know what it is, whether it's wrong or right, but you will trust that number. And that is the key in success of fintech, digital economy, is the trust. A consumer does not know the terms critical infrastructure, does not understand what goes on in making a cyber secure, layered approach. He or she only knows one thing, that he did not do a transaction. Yesterday in his bank account there was 10,000 rupees, today it's 9,000. Where has that 1,000 gone? Rest they are not cared, they don't worry about, and the senior people here from the SBI or any other bank will confirm to that. They are not interested in anything else. During that 1,000 rupees that have been taken away from their account, many things could have happened. They could have been at a mistake themselves. And most of the times they are, right? But that destroys their faith in digital ecosystems, right? And that is the behavioral change that I think securing our financial environment has to do, our financial systems have to do. And it's a very long task. In a country that is leapfrogging, not 1 or 2, but at least 3 generations in financial systems, I think we have a huge task ahead of us to ensure our financial systems in all levels, all layers are secure. Now that's easier said than done. All of us have said this, I've heard the sessions. Banks are probably at the higher end of it, at the top end of it, the servers, the financial systems. The FM in his budget has announced a CERT, a computer emergency response team, dedicated only to the banks, right? You've heard that statement. And I think that's a global best practice. We need a critical response system only for the banks, right? I'm not trying to say that all other critical infrastructure is not as important, but sometimes that critical infrastructure does not impact the consumer as much as a missing 1,000 rupees from his bank account. The trust in the system goes away completely. Money is very, very precious after all, and we saw it during the 50 days of demonetization. I think how people are so, and it's important, it's a human behavior, right? So that's the bank layer. And there's a renewed emphasis that banks need to look at their both emergency response mechanisms, but also proactively secure their networks, their systems, make it, cyber security should be part of the design of banking. That's one move. Second thing, of course, all the other discussion that we did on the network layer. So there is a bank, the network layer, that has to be secured. And there is a lot of work that is happening as a country, as companies, private, government, and things like that. There are two other things which we forget. And I think the experts in the front row who have spoken so well about it, we concentrate on this bank, the network layer. We don't concentrate on two things: the user, the app, and the instrument that they use. And this is another critical part. The user training, the user awareness of cyber hygiene is becoming very, very critical. As I said, in the example of 3,700 crore rupees being lost, 95% of that could have been prevented by correct cyber hygiene, by correct cyber education. Cyber security is a layered approach. Everybody will tell you that. But really it starts with the user. And so you can look at it from top down. The banks need to be secure, the networks need to be secure, but first I need to be secure. I need to know what's the importance of my PIN, mobile PIN, whatever else it may be. And it has to grow up from there. And that's where a lot of emphasis is being done to get people digitally literate, financially literate on what it means. A lot of emphasis, while we talk about the BHIM app, the first step that was taken was to educate people on financial literacy, on financial systems. What they can share, what they should not share. During the 50 days of demonetization, the highest amount of request that banks received during the 50 days was what? Anybody? The highest amount was, I don't know my PIN. Oh, I gave it to somebody else, he or she knew it, I don't know my PIN of my debit card, my app, my this thing and that thing. That was the number one request the banks received. Importance of that PIN associated with your RuPay card or your debit card cannot be understated. Right? If you lose the card, that's okay, but if you lose it with your PIN, and if it is written at the back of your card, you're pretty much, couple of transactions will happen, right? So it starts with that user hygiene, cyber security at that level. The BHIM app that Praveen talked about is our next attempt to make sure the app layer is also secure. Because unless the application is secure, you don't know who's reading what data. It's a very big issue. Today, there are people who use apps which they have no clue of what data is being shared and taken away from their phones. I was testing before coming to this session, sitting right there where Deepak Sahu is sitting. I was actually testing something on my phone. I installed some app and it asked me for at least 20 permissions that app had no business of asking. Absolutely none. And this is my favorite example. How many of you use the Torch app on your phone? The light app, the Torch app? How many have not used it? Why does a Torch app need to know which my contacts are? It does ask you, try that. The Torch app on your phone wants to access your contacts on your phone or access your photographs. That's none of its business. So what is happening is a lot of insecure apps. There is no standardization of security on apps. The Bheem app, apart from being simple, is also an attempt to give you a standardized app where at least you know you can trust this app. You can trust this logo. That's a very important thing. The app is not a spurious app, does not have malware in it. So that's the second thing. And of course, the third part of what the user controls is the mobile phone. And more steps are being taken to secure the mobile, Android, and in the future, hopefully iOS environment, so that when you work on this new innovation, the India stack, as we call it, the UPI layer, the Unified Payments Interface, what is happening at the back end? A lot of secure transactions at scale. But we need to ensure that the user, the app, the phone, and then of course the network and the servers are all secure. So those 5 layers of security is what is being planned in a holistic manner. And to me, cyber security in this new fintech world, the new economy that we are promoting, is as critical as anything else. Because, and I will share some numbers with you. This is very exciting. I'd opened my laptop, the iPad, because of this. November 8th, that we so fondly now remember, because of 2 reasons. The USA elected a president, who's stealing the headlines, and India did demonetization. I just came back from the US. I think the second move is being talked about more than the first move. But, we'll see that is a 4-year term. The number of transactions, e-transactions, this is data as of, end of January, basically, that was released. Wallets went up in November, went up in December, but in January, it's stable. It's as much as what happened in December, the e-wallets. All the other IMPS transactions, more or less, November, December it peaked, but again back to a normal level. But what is really exciting is the number of transactions that are happening on Bheem/UPI. Up from 90 crores to 1,270 crores. Is actually competing with all the wallets combined. All the wallets combined and UPI are together right now. And and UPI, remember, is a framework by the government. It's managed by the government, NPCIL. So it's more securer than anybody else. I always knock on wood when I say that, because that's the effort we need to make sure that this layer of transaction remains secure going forward. But that's the future. And the Bheem app is, of course, as we talked about, one of the parts of that future. Last thing I want to leave you with it is that, as we said, the biggest challenge for fintech companies is to make financial transactions in the digital ecosystem, the digital transactions for money, as secure, as easy as it is when I give somebody a 100 rupee note. The consumer always felt at ease taking that 100 rupees from myself and giving it to a merchant. It was a very easy transaction. Both cost-wise, it was 0 transaction cost to the consumer and the merchant. There's a lot of other costs associated with it, but in the perception of the consumer and the merchant, it is 100 rupees from one person to another. It's pretty secure. We need to ensure, and that's a challenge we all have as fintech revolution takes over our country, and it's showing a new vision to the world, by the way. The whole world is amazed at what we are doing with fintech in this country. That the transaction, the digital transaction, is as trustworthy, as secure, as easy. It should be as easy, but also as secure. And those 2 design parameters will remain the fundamental design parameters going forward. Easiness is important, but security cannot be compromised. So, given that, I think those are my opening statements. It's exciting times. India is leading the world. without any hitch, I can tell you, India is leading the world in fintech revolution globally. Everybody is looking up to India and what we are offering in this whole new normal globally. So.